This presentation is on assistive technology, modified assessments, and data to drive instruction. Here we have a course instruction for 9th grade U.S. History and Geography. I focused on Era 7, the Great Depression and World War II, specifically the World War II section. Here are my ICANNs with the DOKs identified with them. Number 1, I can identify causes for World War II. I can identify major events during World War II. I can match countries, their alliances during World War II. I can summarize the events that caused the U.S. to join World War II officially. I can make observations on how World War II affected American life. I can classify the Eastern and Western fronts in World War II. I can compare Axis powers treatment after World War II. I can investigate the war in the Pacific. I can cite evidence of the mass genocides, and I can analyze the responses to the Holocaust. My formative assessment plan would be exit tickets on the causes of World War II, a research paper on selected topics that I will have available at the time, a historical timeline where they have to create the timeline of events during World War II, class discussion where I would have the students lead and keep participation points, and weekly quizzes with 5 questions to help check understanding. My summative assessment plans would be a pre-unit test, a post-unit test, and a verbal test, which I would have at the end of the semester, where I have a 5-minute conversation with each student, where they answer a specific question. My plan for modifications and accommodations for formative and summative would be to change it to a read aloud test, to maybe chunk some assignments, so not have them turn in all of the research paper at once, but say the introduction and have that due at a certain date, and then the next 2 paragraphs at a certain date, to extend due dates, to alter grading criteria, to alter the DOK levels, to shorten assignments or tests, and allow notes to be used on tests. Some plans for mediation that I have would be for the exit ticket to maybe have the warm-up discussion the next day to clear up misunderstandings if, say, most of the students answered the question wrong that I handed out. The research paper, to review and edit the paper, then have the students consult each other on changes needing to be made before the final draft is turned in. The historical timeline, we can make the timeline together as a class. Class discussion, I could intervene to keep the discussion on topic and flowing, as well as helping get students to participate. And weekly quizzes, we could have a discussion of the answers the following day and make the grading criteria easier. So here's my summative assessment. I did it on World War II. I did this with Google Forms, which I'm more comfortable with, and I find it very easy to collect data with. I asked a couple long answer questions, as well as multiple choice questions and a check all questions. There was 10 questions in total that met with my ICANN statements. How can my data be used in MTSS? Well, for the academic instruction of interventions, if my students were failing, I would intervene with modifications on the tests and offer more one-on-one help, as well as possible different settings for tests and reading tests aloud. If a student was getting a D or C, I would have secondary interventions with some modifications. I would have them come together as a group where we could all discuss certain things and try to figure out where we might be falling behind and how I could help them better. If they are getting a B or an A, that would be universal intervention, where they would be in a good spot currently. I would be making preventative actions and maybe doing more review. Some plans for remediation. So if my students weren't doing very good on a specific test, I would go through and I would revisit the missed questions. Specifically with this test, as I had a few friends do it, they struggled with the war in the Pacific. So I would revisit that and discuss further detail. Quite a few of them struggled with short answer questions. So I would have to go over the expectations I had for these questions, maybe practice them more in class with exit tickets or quizzes, so they'd be more prepared for these bigger tests and exams. That's it. Thank you.